The most important thing in all of this is for you as a student going to be taking the ASVAB, basically come up with a plan. So you know what you're shooting for, you know what your goals are. So you're going to need to align sort of your study habits with that particular thing.
Welcome back to the ASVAB Domination Podcast. I am your host, Mickey Gavinal, and I am super excited. I've been looking forward to this interview all week long with the great Kristen Titus. She is one of the best ASVAB tutors. She also does SAT prep as well. So she's one of the best SAT tutors as well, who has helped me with my ASVAB stuff way back in the day. But she's here now to answer all of our questions about ASVAB stuff. Kristen, thank you so much for being on the show.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate hearing from you and appreciate being able to reach out to everybody today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great to have you. For anybody who's not familiar with your tenure, can you tell us a little bit about your professional experience, where you come from, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So I have actually worked mostly as a teacher in a high school setting. So for about 12 of my 20 some years, I'm not going to date myself. So that I have been working with high school students and many of them in a public school setting, and many of them feel like, I'm not really sure what I want to do, or they're just looking for a lot of different opportunities. And so, in that capacity, I've been able to kind of steer them in the direction of military because I think it's such a good growing up framework, if you will, for a lot of kids, for a lot of people in general. So I say kids, but they're young
No.
adults.
No, 100%, 100%. I think it's something that's really clear in high schools, but even for everybody fresh out of high school, there's kind of a lack of what direction they want to go. And military may not be for everybody, but it does provide direction if you want to go into that route or go out of that route. So I think that resonates really well. And you as a teacher that actually helps to guide those students, that's, filling that void, maintaining that mentorship and all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you were a general science teacher for the most part, right? What science subjects did you teach? If
So I've literally pretty much taught everything with the exception of math. But I do still have a really strong math background because obviously it ties into science in a lot of ways. I've taught biology, I've taught chemistry, I've not taught physics, that's not really my jam, but I've taught history as well. I've taught English. So I've taught a million different things, and I also served as a testing coordinator. So in where I live in Florida, kids have to meet like basic standards in both English and math. And so I helped a lot of my kids. Generally, you see, in a class of 500 kids, you see, going into the senior year, you see about 100 kids that aren't there yet in one subject or another. And so I really facilitated a lot of review time for them where we honed in on specific skills, and then also trying again during this time to guide them in a direction so that they aren't like flatlining when they come out of high school and not have any sort of direction. So there's kind of a counseling aspect to that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I can only imagine the bottom 20% of students who academically are underperforming. I would imagine that their direction and their future prospects must be much more difficult to parse together for them because they're just trying to get by for the most part. Is that accurate?
I would say absolutely. And they just, they've struggled literally probably their whole lives, or they're just one of those kids who just has never kind of found their lane. And so my goal always for a kid is to always find something that they feel passionate about, that they feel stability in. And so I think that that's where the military really does come in because, some of my kids that really needed structure in their lives. This has been a good fit for them when, they were able to come in and talk to the recruiters about what would be expected of them going into like a military career.
Yeah. Heck yeah. No, that's great. That's great. And you also have a son that serves. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my oldest son, Brendan, I want to say it was the summer before 11th grade, decided kind of spontaneously that he was going to start exploring his options and see like where he landed. We did have an ROTC program at the high school that I was teaching at that time. And so he was in that program. And so he developed a really strong relationship. I will be quite honest that I had hoped that he would go into the Air Force. Um,
Of
but
course.
he developed a really strong relationship with the Army recruiter at that time. He took ASVAB and he scored, I want to say, an 87, which is pretty nice.
Heck
I
yeah.
didn't even know that he knew about some of these things. Like, I didn't know that he knew about the mechanical component. But we had spent some time kind of reviewing some of the math concepts and some of the English concepts prior to him testing. And obviously, he was kind of a standout in his class. So I was super proud of that. And he's currently serving his time at BAMC in Texas. And he is working in the emergency room, doing crazy stuff, massaging human hearts and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I love hearing about all of it, and I'm excited for him that he gets those opportunities.
Heck yeah. No, that's so cool. One thing that a lot of recruiters talk about is parents who have their kids go off into the military. Did you have any apprehension or anxieties about Brendan joining the army?
I mean, of course, I have a younger son with autism. So I always had hoped that one of my kids would go to do the sort of traditional four-year college thing. But I quickly learned that did not see that in my older son's future. He was an excellent student in high school, but he really needed sort of more stimulus. Like he needed physical activity. He needed like a purpose. And so I don't necessarily, and he is currently working on a degree now, but at the time, he just wasn't quite ready. And it has really truly given him an opportunity to grow into an adult, really kind of stand on his own and kind of support himself without, a lot of other stuff. I mean, he has the support of the army, and I will tell you, he did go away in 2020, and kind of like I feel like it was sort of a ripping of the band-aid, if you will. They told us he wasn't going, and then suddenly they were like, he's going in 2 days.
Oof.
So it was kind of like he barely graduated. I mean, he didn't really graduate from high school because he didn't have a graduation, and then he was just gone. And then he
Wow.
wasn't able to come back until a very long time later because of COVID. So we definitely had that Band-Aid ripped off very quickly. I, I laugh about it, but honestly, I think in some ways it was easier on me as a mom.
Yeah. No, I think it's underrated the struggle of parents that, see the kids go off into the military. We're always focused on, what are those kids going through? What's that like? But as a parent, especially a parent with your experience, you've been a high school teacher, you've seen what the smart kids do versus what the not smart kids do, and you like have a very clear track record of like what classically is defined as success. And so you definitely, I would imagine, had to make some concessions and like be like, okay, well, this can still qualify. And like exactly like you said, you're still seeing value in Brendan's current situation where he's actually doing really, really cool things that 99% of the rest of the country just doesn't get to experience. So I applaud all the parents out there who can do that, who can adjust their mindset and kind of restructure, what they want for their kids. It's got to be a tough transition.
Yeah, and again, as a teacher, that definitely was. I saw, my students leaving for college, and I always expected my own son to be, with them, but he just felt his need. He felt very compelled to serve. So I'm proud of him for making that decision. I think it was a huge commitment to our country, to our family, and I truly respect that decision. So.
Awesome. That's great. That's great stuff. Okay. Well, I do want to go over your ASVAB tips. I know that anytime that I've worked with you, I've always heard awesome things. You're a great tutor, you're phenomenal at what you do. And I think a lot of that comes from your classical teaching experience, but I think a lot of it also comes from that mentorship and that connection with students that you were mentioning earlier. A lot of teachers just can't do that. A lot of teachers just cannot get into the heads of their students, can't start thinking like those students do. And I think that's something that you've always excelled at. And my students have always appreciated it. I'm sure that your students and all of those parents have appreciated it, whether that's on the SAT or the ASVAB side. So I was wondering, can you give us your ASVAB tips and tricks?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking about this as I was approaching this podcast today and kind of did a little bit of digging in what kind of was my mindset in all of this. And so I think probably the most important thing in all of this is for you as a student going to be taking the ASVAB is a couple of things. One is to basically come up with a plan. So you know what you're shooting for, you know what your goals are. So you're going to need to align sort of your study habits with that particular thing. So obviously, my son getting an 87, I don't think that a lot of people, I don't think that most people are getting an 87 on the ASVAB.
Right.
I would say that the middle line is like a 50, 50 somewhere in that range. And I think that's a great goal for students to have. Have something that's relevant to you and sort of what you think your own abilities are. So that gives you, the most opportunities. And so you're going to want to align your study plan with that. And absolutely, you or I could work with any individual student to kind of come up with a specific plan for them, whatever it is that they're wanting to achieve. So whether it's, 45 minutes that, every other night, whether it's 45 minutes every night, some students have different challenges. And so we can definitely help you direct your plan for that. I also think timing is very important. So I'm going to go over the timing for a couple of sections. So for general science, which is not weighted as heavily as sort of the math and the English components are, but it's 10 minutes for 16 questions. So guys, you're talking about like 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds a question. So you really need to have sort of a plan when you are tackling that particular section. And if that is your strength, like hone in on it and knock it out of the park. I know that I've had really, really strong science students who are familiar with a lot of the vocab, but all those things are available to you as well. As far as math goes, the two math sections, you have the arithmetic reasoning. That question is 36 minutes for 16 questions. So you have a little bit slower of a pace, but you want to make sure that you feel that, I call it a push. You want to feel that you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm taking a really long time with this question. I need to move forward. Because the goal here is for you to be able to answer the most questions correctly in that time. So if you spend all of your time looking at one question and all of a sudden you've eaten up, 20 minutes of your time, that's not really an effective time management strategy. And then the math knowledge section is 24 minutes and 16 questions. So again, slightly less than 2 minutes a question. So again, you're feeling that push. And again, if you need to skip forward, you just do that. And I teach that for SAT as well. Like you need to just push forward, flag things, and move on. And then for the reading sections, your word knowledge section is 11 minutes for 16 questions. Again, less than a minute a question, so probably about, 45 seconds a question, I would say. And then for your paragraph comprehension, you're literally looking at an entire paragraph, and that is 13 minutes for 11 questions. So basically about a minute a question. So those are probably the most relevant sections. But again, you also have obviously your specific skill sets in electronics, in automotive, in mechanical, and assembly. And so if those are your strengths, it'll definitely factor in for you. But I think the most important parts are the five that I just mentioned. And then the final part is that we are definitely going to provide you with some review skills. So review tools such as using vocab for Quizlet. Specifically, we can post those within the group. And then you guys can do basically flashcards with that. There's also gaming components with that. And, we can push all of that information out as well. So it could be a review of all of the sections depending on whatever it is that you need. So those are sort of my tips and tricks as far as just generally touching on this. And obviously we would dig into much more as we would meet together.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I think that's something that's missed with a lot of teachers is they focus so much on the concepts because at heart, you're probably a scientist. I like to think I'm a mathematician. Like we love the concepts, we really love the beauty of you need to know what an average is so that you can, figure out the average salary of your town or whatever. Like it's completely unrelated to test and gaming the test. And I think that's something that you're exceptional at. The other thing that you are absolutely amazing at is that Quizlet stuff, your resource accumulation, resource hunting. I'm not even exactly sure what the best terminology here is, but your method for gathering resources for students, I still use 90% of everything that you found, a couple years ago. And it's incredible because I think a lot of what's missing is that study plan and that structure in somebody's study, especially if you've been out of school or if you had even if you've been in school the whole time, you can find yourself struggling with like what should I, how should I study for this kind of thing? So I've seen that quite a bit. So I really appreciate you highlighting those things.
Absolutely.
All right. So one thing that you specifically do, Kristen, is you're an excellent SAT tutor. And I've never worked with you on your SAT tutoring, but based on my past experience with you, I'm sure that you're crushing it as an SAT tutor. What we spoke about a little bit before the podcast is your method for gaming that test. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with the SATs to ensure your students' success?
So I literally just stay abreast of every single test. So SAT one likes to really reuse, and I would see this in every testing platform across all channels, right? So you're talking about MCAT, you're talking about all of this stuff. They like to reuse questions. So they use the same strategy, they use the same styles of questions, and so you just have to know when you see that question, this is the strategy that I'm going to employ to tackle this question. And so in SAT currently, they are utilizing a calculator function called Desmos. And so Desmos, I feel like, has changed the game for SAT. This last go around, I would say my average student, so usually I only take on, because I am still a full-time teacher, I took on, I think, anywhere between 10 and 12 students privately, and then a larger group holistically through like group sessions. But I never meet on, with those students sort of one on one. And so I want to say my average gain from August to September was something like 140 points.
Oof.
So with every student basically over 1,000, well over 1,000. So I had a student that was a current 1020. He got he got an 1190, which in Florida means that you get what's called Bright Futures. It means basically that you get money towards your college. So I want to say every student but one met that requirement through the gain that they made from, I know, from August to September. I had never seen, and again, I've been like really studying and really honing in on strategies to help them. And I have never seen gains like that. So it just was phenomenal. And I'm hoping, so I ran a couple of those similar sessions. I'm running another group session between now and November. I think it's on October. I think it's on November 1st, actually. And so we are honing in on those skills so that, and I hate to say this, students with maybe not as strong of math skills know how and understand how to use the calculator function to answer the questions. So, and I stay, like I said, I stay abreast of all of the new questions that are coming out because they do infuse some new questions that they're testing. And so I stay abreast of those. And so literally it's become like kind of almost methodical in my approach to teaching the students for next month. So it's actually really exciting. I really love it. And I love seeing my students take advantage of all that scholarship money. It's phenomenal.
Right. I mean, that's huge, right? That's the thing that people miss when they're trying to figure out how much it costs for tutoring or how much, they're always looking at this front end, right? What is this? How many dollars and how many, they don't think how many hours do I have to work to earn those dollars, but they think how much do I have to give up? And it's such a shame that they don't often think like it really takes a special person to think how much do I gain when this works out. And it's got to be super clear with the SAT when there's that scholarship money on the other side of that threshold that you like since you've got all of your students who are turning around and getting that scholarship money, they must like it emboldens them to make more investments in themselves in the future. And that trajectory's infinite. Like you can continue to rise up and climb from there. So I just think it's great that you're doing that.
Yeah, it makes me so happy. It makes me happy for them. It makes me happy for their families because I know when I went to college, I was very fortunate. My mom was a teacher, and she basically told me as a kid, I feel like this was ingrained in my brain from the time I was, 5 years old, that if I worked hard and I got to go where I wanted to go, that my parents would pay.
Mhm.
So I was very fortunate in that. And I did end up going to an out of state school. So I was living in Pennsylvania and I graduated from the University of Delaware. But I was just very fortunate. And then I earned scholarship money to put myself through my master's program. But those programs are not programs that I would have been able to afford sort of on my own. So I definitely see the advantage for kids today and families today. I mean, families are struggling today. So that infusion of scholarship money is so important to their kids' futures.
Yeah. No, and it's so easy to draw the parallels to ASVAB here because it's the exact same thing just with a different tone. Like it's you take a student who can barely squeak by with a 31 or a 25, and with that 25 score they got to go and do the O9 mic program where they're gonna, just basically be needs of the army. You got to go push a broom for 3 years or push a broom for 6 years. And then you take that student and you train them up, and the amount that they can gain, if they go into signal, if they go into aviation, if they go into healthcare, and that's like not even mentioning the amount of bonus money that's actually on the table for those jobs, like real cash that they will get over their contract. And then, of course, my favorite part, and I think it's yours too, I think it's why everybody gets into teaching, is the confidence, right? When you're in a room full of people, you don't feel like you're the person who's the bottom of the totem pole in every single room you go into. I promise you that the 20% of students that you were working with in the Florida schools, like those students, I'm sure some of them had a great deal of confidence in areas of their lives, but some of them must have felt, hey, I don't score well on tests. I'm not that smart. And that's the thing that kills teachers, right? That's the thing that kills parents. Like we just hate to see kids that feel that they're incapable. And so I love that, you're out there building agency for these students and for their families. So that's great stuff.
Yeah, and I know I had reached out to you last year regarding a student that I had, and that was his passion. He had a construction business literally at his fingertips. That was his dad's business, he had worked with his dad over on the side, but he really felt compelled to serve the country. He felt compelled to do something for himself, and he felt compelled to do something to better himself. And so I know I had reached out to you to ask, for some assistance
Yeah.
because I just didn't know what other avenues were out there to assist him. And so I was really grateful to you to reach it, to be able to assist with him. And I truly don't know what ended up happening as far as him being recruited or not, but I would hope that he is living out his dream currently.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's the reason that we help these students is it's to go let them do what they want to do. I mean, it's such a shame that so much students think that teachers are just power tripping. They just want to control the student's life. And it's not the case at all. It's the absolute opposite. They want to give them like all majority, 99% of teachers that I've met, all they want to do is give agency to their students. They just want to let their students have the capacity to go out and get whatever they want. So it's great. It's great to be in the tutoring field. just for that reason alone, let alone the scholarship money and the bonuses and the different MOSs and the different colleges you can go to. Like there's so much upside to doing well on these tests that it's a great thing to be involved in. So
Yeah, it definitely affects their trajectory of their adult life. So I can only look to my own son, but I also see I have had many students over the years that recruited in different branches, and I meet them on the street and I'm literally blown away by the adult that they've become. And it literally makes me, it's what makes me tick, right? It's what drives me as a human being and as a teacher specifically. So.
yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, Kristen, I think we're about good. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover today or anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I just appreciate everybody's time and I look forward to working with whoever lands on our plate,
Heck
right?
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. If anybody wanted help with SAT stuff, how could they look you up? How could they get in contact with you?
So I would suggest just reaching out to me by my email, which is Kristen, Kristen, Titus, Titus, 1992, and that's at gmail.com. And I'm happy to, schedule something specifically with you. I'm looking to possibly put a group together that would just be an online group. So that would be an option. But I, can obviously give you some more information about that as we kind of head off that at the pass, right?
All right. Sounds great. Well, Kristen, thanks so much for coming on. It was great having you.
Oh, it's great being here. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you. Hey, what's up, everybody? Mickey Gaminol here with Gaminol Tutors, ASVAB Domination. Today, I am putting out some information regarding my 6-week boot camp. We are going to be doing a 6-week program to raise your AFQT. Now, that is going to have a money back guarantee, but in order to qualify for your money back, you do have to attend sessions, you have to do your homework, all that kind of stuff. I'm really excited to see a lot of scores raised, and I'm only taking the first 15 students that sign up. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to keep class sizes small so that we can really get the most for our students as possible. So if you have been trying to increase your ASVAB, or if you're taking the ASVAB for the first time and just want to get the best possible score right off the bat, this boot camp is for you. We're going to be increasing everybody's score who attends, or they're going to get their money back. So it's actually pretty much win-win-win all the way across the board. I can't wait to see you there and look forward to working with you.